North America, from the other. Hello, everyone, wherever you are from North America, from Canada, US, United States, from other continents. Thank you for joining us for our third monthly webinar. So would you like to know how to be part of the expanding pharmacovigilance market in North America? Please stay with us after that. Thank you so much. This is Omar Eimer from Montreal, Canada, and thank you for joining us for this third webinar organized by InnoVigilance and RX course. I will, in today's webinar, I will introduce myself for those that they don't know me yet. Then we will welcome together our guest today, Dr. Sarah Rogers. Welcome and thank you for accepting our invitation. It's just we are excited to know more about the ISP today, about you, and about pharmacovigilance in North America. Then we will have a presentation from Dr. Sarah will present about all this webinar. Then we will move to Q&A session from the audience. So this is Omar Eimer. I'm from the PhD. I'm a pharmacovigilance and drug safety and medical device safety expert based in Greater Montreal in Quebec, Canada. I'm a pharmacist, and I had, my PhD in pharmacology, then moved to France in Paris with a Master Science in Industrial Pharmacy, then the Pharmacovigilance and Drug Safety Master Science at the University of Paris Descartes University in France since 2015. I was a lecturer on pharmacology at the University of Oran and Algiers in Algeria, and director of a quality control lab. Then moved to Paris, France as a pharmacovigilance pharmacist, and moved then to Canada since 2017, working as a pharmacovigilance and drug safety and device safety specialist here in Montreal. Then also I participate as a speaker in World Drug Safety since 4 or 5 years ago. I'm also a member of the International Society of Pharmacovigilance, the North American chapter, and the founder of InnoVigilance. We're providing an online course for PV, pharmacovigilance and drug safety certificate. So thank you. I will move to Sarah bio. So Sarah Rogers is a PharmD, and she's a pharmacist. She's a researcher, a director of translating genomics into improved patient care, a director of clinical affairs of the American Society of Pharmacovigilance, a chairman of Pharmacogenomics Access and Reimbursement Coalition. She's from Houston, Texas, in the US, United States of America. So Dr. Sarah Rogers is a founding board member and director of clinical affairs at the American Society of Pharmacovigilance, where she leads the society's clinical research and educational initiatives. Dr. Sarah is a member of the Clinical Pharmacogenetics Implementation Consortium, a dissemination working group. She's also a co-chairman of the Pharmacogenomic Access and Reimbursement Coalition. Dr. Sarah is an organizational member of the NIH National Human Genomics Research Institute Inter-Society Coordinating Committee PGX Working Group. She also co-developed the Standardizing Laboratory Practices in Pharmacogenomics, STRIPE, collaborative community, a public-private multidisciplinary initiative to accelerate the development of personalized medicine practices as a standard of care. As a clinician scientist, Dr. Sarah conducts patient-centered research aimed at understanding the ethical and practical implications of pharmacogenomics. Prior to serving in these roles, Dr. Rogers was an ambulatory treatment center pharmacist at the University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center. She received her pharmacist degree from the University of Houston College of Pharmacy and holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Austin with a concentration in biology. So please join me to welcome Dr. Sarah Rogers. Welcome as our guest today. So thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Eimer, and for organizing this great discussion about how to get into pharmacovigilance. I know it's a hot topic and a great industry to get into. So I'm happy to share a little bit more about ASP. So
yeah. So what bio? So what I receive I saw your biography. So I just was wow. So yeah, you've done many things. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. And I think we take a little bit different approach to pharmacovigilance, but it's going to be a great opportunity to talk about all the different ways it's possible to integrate pharmacovigilance into all sorts of different roles. So I got my start in oncology, as you mentioned, working at a comprehensive cancer center. And outside of that role, I worked on some research projects. At the time, we were looking at developing an algorithm to identify which types of patients could most benefit from certain types of genetics testing. So through that experience, there seemed to be an unmet need for new approaches to address the high rate of adverse drug events in the US. So a group of us launched ASP in 2018 as a platform to bring attention to important problems that our healthcare system faces around medication safety. And at ASP, we take a unique approach to pharmacovigilance as we redefine the way America thinks about adverse drug events.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you. So go ahead, please.
Sure. So and ASP is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission is to rapidly and dramatically reduce the high rate of adverse drug events and suffering and mortality due to adverse drug events. So when I think about pharmacovigilance, I think about any effort to identify, track, monitor, or prevent an adverse drug event. ADEs are the fourth leading cause of death here in the States, with studies showing that we spend $528 billion a year in avoidable costs from non-optimized medications. And even, at $500 billion, that estimate is believed to be an underestimate. So, and according to the Agency for Healthcare Quality and Research, ADEs are not only the most costly, but also the most preventable hospital-acquired condition. So, and I'm hoping you can see my slides. Can you, Dr. Eimer?
Yes.
So we have a quote up here, and it was a global patient safety expert at Eli Lilly was quoted as saying that the number of adverse events is trending dramatically upward, 10 to 20% increases in reports every year, a number that's not going anywhere but up. So a lot of different types of things can cause a drug-related event for a patient. A big contributor is medication errors. And there's a lot of focus, I feel, throughout healthcare on preventing medication errors. Great work done by organizations like the Institute of Safe Medicine Practices in setting best practices specifically to avoid medication errors. And it really makes a big difference because once a best practice becomes standard of care, it's no longer a pressing problem. An even bigger contributor to the ADE rate is adverse drug reactions, or what we might call side effects from medications. And there's a lot less focus on preventing adverse drug reactions. This is where we have an opportunity to foster precision in prescribing practices and is really the core of what we do at ASP. So we recently distributed a series of polls to ask healthcare professionals simple terminology questions related to pharmacovigilance, and less than half of people who responded were able to correctly match these common terms with the right definition. And these are terms that are often used interchangeably, which creates confusion around a problem that's already very complex. So this Venn diagram was taken from the National Action Plan for Adverse Drug Event Prevention, put out by the Department of Health and Human Services. An adverse drug event has been defined by the Institute of Medicine, now the National Academies of Medicine, as an injury resulting from medical intervention related to a drug. So as I mentioned on the last screen, this can be caused by medication errors, adverse drug reactions, allergic reactions, and overdoses. So an error, a medication error, is an inappropriate use of a drug. It may or may not result in harm. So we like to say there's 5 R's, or 5 things that we want to make absolutely sure are right every time we deliver a drug to a patient. It should be the right patient, the right drug, the right dose, the right route of administration, and the right frequency. So if there's a failure of any of those things, it's an error. But only a small, in looking at this diagram, only a small proportion of all the medication errors that occur end up resulting in harm to the patient. So the key point here is that if an error occurs, but it does not cause harm to the patient, then it's not considered an adverse drug event. It's still incorrect. We need to investigate what went wrong, but it doesn't always injure the patient. So in contrast to that, we have adverse drug reactions, which is a harm directly caused by a drug at a normal dose. So everything was correct. The patient still had a side effect or an issue. And, it's just they took the drug and they had a side effect. So by definition, an ADR always results in an event or an injury to the patient. So you can see kind of in this diagram that adverse drug reactions are really the most common cause of adverse drug events. And, that leads us to the ASP vision, and it's really to prevent the premature death of millions of patients by building a healthcare network that represents the ASP core values, which I have listed here. And part of that is our culture as a healthcare system, and how can we foster a culture of innovation and problem solving. We know that we can achieve better outcomes when we integrate different perspectives and ideas, and then building persistent public awareness to bring these issues to the forefront. So that said, a lot of our program is centered around precision medicine and advancing opportunities to understand how a patient will respond to a medication before they have a serious event. So I have a few of our programs listed here. All of these started small and now they're rapidly growing and gaining traction. So the Pharmacogenomics Access and Reimbursement Coalition is a global multi-stakeholder network focused on increasing patient access to molecular diagnostics and in particular pharmacogenetics testing. So we released our first report last year. It's available in Pharmacogenomics Journal, and we held our inaugural symposium 6 months ago at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C., and we'll be holding another symposium at the same location to expand on the initial topics we covered last year. Community dialogues is a research method where a group of study participants meets to discuss a complex topic related to their health. And over the course of 6 weeks, they get educational materials, and we meet weekly to discuss their values and priorities related to the topic. In this case, personalized medicine and health literacy. And we collaborate with the leading experts for this type of research method. So we completed our pilot study last fall. That manuscript's been submitted, and we're also applying for an NIH grant to expand the scope and also narrow the focus at the same time of our dialogues to specific disease states. So ASP also convenes a collaborative community for pharmacogenetics testing, and I'll talk more about what a collaborative community is, because it's a unique framework and an opportunity for everyone on the call today to participate in public policy and evidence development in this area. 2 centers within FDA participate in this initiative through official programming that they developed to engage with stakeholders. So the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, which regulates medical devices, and then the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. They have a special role in precision medicine, in that they not only do, within that department, do all the safety surveillance, and they house the FAERS, the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, but they can identify and flag signals as they're occurring, and if there's kind of a trend in what's occurring, and it seems that it's related to a genetic association, then potentially they may also be able to update the drug label to include pharmacogenetics information and prevent additional events from occurring. So there are ways to make drug prescribing more precise through what we call pharmacogenomics. It is a newer field of study. The term first began appearing in the medical literature in the 1990s, and it's really 2 words: pharmacology, the study of drugs, and genomics, the study of genes and their functions. So the Human Genome Project was completed 20 years ago, and the first pharmacogenetics test was approved a couple years later. In 2009, the group that develops the clinical guidelines to translate genetic information into an actionable clinical decision was created. So we've really only had the ability to use PGX in the clinic for the past 10 years. And the potential of pharmacogenomics really represents the forefront of science and medicine. Basically, the premise is that there are certain genes that encode proteins which are involved in a drug's action or in its metabolism, and these genes are called pharmacogenes. Variation in pharmacogenes can cause variation in drug response. So if we can understand a patient's predisposition and how they may respond to a medication, we could use that information to optimize therapy and prevent adverse drug events. I'll give a quick background on the types of information we can gain from pharmacogenetics testing, and this information is collected via cheek swab and can be referenced throughout the lifetime of a patient in making a decision on drug and dose selection. There are 2 main types of pharmacogenes: pharmacokinetic or pharmacodynamic, in addition to certain adverse event-related genes that are also of interest. You could classify genes as pharmacokinetic if they affect absorption, distribution, metabolism, or excretion of the drug. So some common enzyme classes within the liver: the cytochrome family and UGT, metabolizing enzymes. So both classes of enzymes can either activate a drug to the therapeutic metabolite or deactivate a drug to prepare it for elimination from the body. And sometimes drug transporters can be involved. So SLC01B1, for example, is important in statin excretion, and it's been linked to an increased risk of muscle pain in certain patients. This is concerning because if it's not caught, it can escalate, and the muscle tissue will start to release its proteins and electrolytes into the blood, and this can damage organs, the heart, kidneys, and it could cause permanent disability or even death. So, and that's a condition that's called rhabdomyolysis. You can also have pharmacodynamic genes that affect drug targets or genes involved in a drug's mechanism of action. As an example, OPR is the opioid receptor gene, and it can be involved in opioid response depending on which variant the patient has. And then there's also adverse event genes. HLA genes, for example, are related to allergies and hypersensitivity. and are associated with serious reactions if a patient is challenged with certain medications. In considering a patient's pharmacogenes to help guide therapy, we can preemptively select a drug and dose that is more likely to work and reduces side effects. Studies have also shown that just the sole act of testing improves a patient's confidence that the medication is more likely to work and less likely to cause them harm, and this leads to improvements in medication adherence. In the setting of geriatric medicine and polypharmacy, where patients are on multiple medications, we have studies showing that we can save hundreds to thousands of dollars within a few months of testing patients, and this far outweighs the cost of testing. If you look specifically at avoided costs of adverse drug reactions, PGX testing has been shown in some studies to be cost-effective over a lifetime, and showing upwards of $50,000 per quality adjusted life year as a savings over the lifetime of the patient. So these are some of the potential outcomes of pharmacogenomics and why it's so important to the work that we do at ASP. But we have a lot of work to do to get precision pharmacotherapy to standard of care. We need to align stakeholder groups to create this type of paradigm shift. And, the stakeholders in the pharmacogenetics testing space are diverse. So you have genetics researchers, consortiums and working groups synthesizing and harmonizing the knowledge base, academic and commercial laboratories offering genetic tests to help guide physician prescribing, as well as clinicians, patient advocates, genetic counselors, pharmacists, software and analytics providers, insurers, and regulators. And I'll talk a little bit about a few of the groups that are developing resources in this space. And, so we have CPIC, which Dr. Eimer mentioned. I am a part of the CPIC group. It's a clinical pharmacogenetic implementation consortium and a large group in the US that comes out with genotype, phenotype, and therapeutic recommendation guidelines for different medications. And CPIC guidelines give very clear recommendations on how to dose or choose a medication based on the patient's genotype. PharmGKB is an online knowledge hub that does clinical annotations related to the impact of human genetic variation on drug response. And you can search for any drug and find the prescribing information, as well as anything in the drug label and all of the clinical citations. So what's the evidence, what clinical trials have been done, and all of that information is freely available through the PharmGKB website. And FDA now has 2 resources, including a new table of pharmacogenetics associations and also a table of pharmacogenomic biomarkers that shows you all the different drugs that reference pharmacogenomic information in the drug's labeling. There's over 250 medications that have genomics in the label. One of the challenges is that there's not necessarily a pharmacogenomics section. So sometimes you'll find PGX information in the precautions or the black box warning. So depending on the severity of the interaction, it can be in different parts of the label. So the table of pharmacogenomic biomarkers will point you to the portion of the label that you can find that information. And currently, the FDA does not require pharmacogenomics in phase 1 studies, but they are strongly recommending that companies start to do this type of research for pre-market as well as early phase clinical trials. So it's more common as drugs come to market to have this PGX data, and I anticipate that'll continue to be the case. So here on the screen, there are all the groups that we need to line up with to create change. And that's why ASP convenes the Stripe collaborative community, is to really discuss challenges in the space and leverage collective opportunities to address them. And a collaborative community is really at its core a continuing forum where public and private sector members work together to achieve common objectives and leverage collective opportunities. And FDA's Center for Devices and Radiological Health set a 2018 to 2020 strategic priority to participate in 10 collaborative communities for 10 different medical devices. And they suggest forming a collaborative community for a given device when challenges are ill-defined or if there's no consensus on the definition of challenge. Partners are interrelated and want to optimize efforts, which includes preventing the duplication of efforts, and if better outcomes could be achieved by integrating different perspectives, experiences, resources, and expertise. Collaborative communities are different from working groups or task forces in that these typically address narrowly defined problems and disband after developing a final deliverable. Collaborative communities are meant to include expansive membership, not just experts in a specific area of practice, and are intended to be sustaining entities with a broad focus. The question is, how can we leverage this concept of collaborative community to meet all of the healthcare sectors that stand to benefit from the advancement of personalized medicine? And so I have a quote here from Scott Gottlieb, who's the former FDA commissioner. Collaborative communities, we believe, can contribute to improvements in areas affecting U.S. patients and healthcare and result in wide-ranging benefits for public health. And that's true of any medical device, but it's especially true for pharmacogenetics testing because PGX has the potential to affect any patient who takes medication. So how many of us will have an ocular implant or an MRI? I'm not sure, but it's definitely less than the number of people who will take a medication that could be impacted by their genetics. So the reach is farther than with other medical devices, but we also need more perspectives to develop solutions because we're not just talking about the test itself and how the testing is performed. We also have to consider the implications of the test results and how that translate into a change in how the patient's medication would be managed based on that information. And the types of things that a collaborative community chooses to work on are unique to the goals set by the community's members. And it can include anything from developing regulatory or clinical best practices to evidence generation, informing healthcare coverage and reimbursement decisions, other clinical and non-clinical research projects, peer-reviewed publications, white papers, templates, frameworks. And the FDA may consider adopting solutions developed by a collaborative community if it's in the best interest of the public. So these are a few examples of potential deliverables, but really there's no limit to what we could accomplish by coming together at this level. And I think we've been successful as an industry in identifying the high-level problems and barriers related to medication safety. So if we could break down those problems into actionable tasks, we could work together to develop solutions. So collaboration is an essential element of many of the approaches we apply to achieve the ASP mission. And the STRIPE initiative we launched in 2019. It's a collaborative community whose mission is to accelerate the development of personalized medicine practices as a standard of care. The vision is to unite key stakeholder groups to harmonize and optimize standards, practices, and resources related to pharmacogenetics testing. One of the benefits of this framework is that bringing different groups to the table to help develop solutions makes it more likely and easier for them to adopt those solutions. That can include regulators and FDA. It could include payers and professional societies, with the professional societies really driving the practice of medicine and how they develop the practice guidelines. So, and where are the opportunities to integrate pharmacogenetics testing and the implications into the practice guidelines. So the overall goal is to improve access to safe, accurate, and reliable information about a patient's medication and drug-gene interactions. The initiative also serves as a mechanism for cross-sector communication, and the priorities and outcomes of the community are shaped by member participation and feedback. We have 10 different committees, and each represents a known barrier and area of opportunity for precision medicine. And the committees bring together stakeholders with knowledge and expertise in a given domain. So if that's technology, if that's patient access, if it's evidentiary standards, or information systems, the focus is really to have a discussion on specific sets of challenges and really work together to map out a plan on what we can do to address some of these key challenges. So we have a list of participating organizations within a prospective member brochure on the ASP website for anyone that is interested in participating or learning more. And, to help bring awareness to the broader issue of adverse drug events, we created a national day. ASP officially announced the establishment of March 24th as National Adverse Drug Event Awareness Day, in a coordinated effort to help spark a national discussion over the ongoing tragedy and staggering healthcare costs directly related to adverse drug events. We also launched a national awareness campaign to encourage patients to share their stories and begin building community support while urging healthcare professionals and organizations to explore how they can scale up efforts to champion medication safety. So we launched a Fourth Cause campaign on March 24th to coincide with National Adverse Drug Event Awareness Day, and it's a social media campaign. We have this toolkit available for download online with drop-in text that you can post on Twitter and LinkedIn, different statistics, just help bring awareness. And we have a campaign photo for Instagram, and we just feel really strongly that prevention starts with education and awareness, and that's something that everyone can participate in and help advance. So I mentioned some of the statistics related to adverse drug events earlier, and people hear the stats all the time and they think, wow, that's a big issue. I had no idea that ADEs were the fourth leading cause of death. And that awareness is important. It's a call to action. But that said, the stats don't always resonate with people. It's the stories that resonate people, and it's bringing it close to home. So a friend, a neighbor, a family member that had a serious and preventable issue with a medication. And we want those stories to be heard because this issue needs more focus. And we face a unique challenge in that our society just accepts the fact that drugs have side effects. Trial and error is the standard of care. And as mentioned, adverse event reports are climbing. We can do more. So I think more in this case starts with small changes to workflow, shifting our quality metrics, fostering collaborations, all things that can be done with a focused and concerted effort to do it. So I invite all of you to visit the campaign page at fourthcause.org to download the toolkit. There's a lot of different ways to participate, and just remember to use the campaign hashtag #4thCause. Anyway, that's a little bit about ASP, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about all the different ways that you can make medication safety your career and some of the opportunities you have available to you. So feel free to reach out with any questions. My email address is here, and we're also on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. For every webinar organized by InnoVigilance and RX course, I come and with the idea that we will share information with our audience, our followers. But at the end, I find myself that I learn more. So thank you for this insightful presentation, and this is our purpose also in and our vision, our mission of InnoVigilance, to spread the knowledge about pharmacovigilance, about drug safety, especially also with the current amid this current pandemic, that people healthcare professionals are open eyes more and more about this burden, the adverse drug reactions, adverse events. So yeah, we try to address this burden, and yeah, I have a question for you. So what actions could we have or could have an impact to address this burden?
Yeah. It's a great question. And there's a lot of ways to make an impact. Education is a big opportunity with new programs developing in this area, like the InnoVigilance program. There's educational activities, continuing education, and then leveraging that knowledge to help create awareness. I would also recommend getting involved through committee work and participate in working groups to contribute to ongoing projects in the space. if you're interested in a career in pharmacovigilance, look for those opportunities that may seem small but could make a big difference. You know, maybe writing an article, help plan an event. We're always pulling together different working groups to support activities that are important to members that, you know, advance our mission, as well as, you know, we are planning a big summit this fall, and the programming is completely developed by members, and a lot of our members will be speaking during the summit as well. And depending on specific interests, there are so many different avenues to make an impact. So I think that's what each of us can do. And then at a broader level, I think there are actions we could take collectively as an industry that seem to fall into 8 general categories, and what we call at ASP, the 8 pillars for improving patient outcomes. So one is reporting, and we need to make sure that patients and providers understand how to report adverse events and encourage them to report, so that we can be more effective with surveillance and identify safety signals early. Part of that is lowering the perceived risk of reporting. I don't know if you've run into issues with this, Dr. Eimer, but so yeah, and technology is another big opportunity, a hot topic. And this was a topic at the last ISOP meeting, was the use of artificial intelligence to help manage, you know, this onslaught of adverse event reports, and taking some of the manual components out of the process. In addition, there's opportunities for entrepreneurship. There is so much great technology that's being developed for, you know, different kinds of things, but you know, potentially have a purpose to be applied towards medication safety. And that the innovation piece is not just the tech, it could also be business model innovation or policy innovation. So that's why we encourage creativity, because right now the status quo is not good enough, and we need to push ourselves to think outside of the box and come up with solutions. So research is another pillar. We need more research in this area, and there needs to be more collaboration in coordinating research efforts. Measurements and standards. I don't think people realize how much that can play a role. You know, what metrics are we using to gauge physician performance, for example? How can we redefine our national quality metrics and reward efforts to identify and reduce adverse drug events at a, you know, at a health system level? And how can we use these metrics to create accountability mechanisms and push for policy change? So, and to us, the most important pillar is equity. So, and through all of these different types of efforts we could take, you know, we want to increase access and improve the quality of care for all patients, regardless of, you know, if they're rural or what their economic status is. And, you know, all patients really do deserve access to the cutting edge technology and high quality care. And right now that's just simply not the case. So.
Yeah, definitely. So this is all about the collaboration, as all the pharmaceutical industry, the health authorities or health agencies, the regulatory bodies, academics, the university, the pharmacy community and clinical centers are involved in drug safety, in pharmacovigilance, in patient safety. And this is our target also for the trainings. We provide trainings to fresh graduate, to healthcare professionals, to pharmaceutical industry, and all personal professionals involved in drug safety and pharmacovigilance, but also in patient care. So as we share today the ASP recognition of InnoVigilance training, and this is just an amazing, and thank you for amazing news. What do you think of this recognition, and how it can help fresh graduates and professionals to join the PV or pharmacovigilance and drug safety space in pharma, in hospitals, in academic, and also other fields?
Yeah, well, you know, first, congratulations on developing the InnoVigilance program. It's really the only of its kind in terms of giving students job-ready training, you know, to get a job in pharmacovigilance and break into these kind of, hard to break into roles. And, this again is a question we get all the time, is how can I get into PV? And the InnoVigilance certificate provides a pathway to actually get into these roles. So, and not to mention, students have you as a mentor to coach them through the job finding process. So hats off to you and your team. And for our small part at ASP, we want to recognize and reward commitment to medication safety. So everyone who completes the certificate will receive a complimentary 1-year membership to the American Society of Pharmacovigilance to help expand your professional networks. And this will also give you an opportunity to contribute to evidence development in the field and further your experience. So when the right job posting comes along, you will be ready.
Oh wow! Thank you so much. So we will share this information on in our social media. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for accepting to present today. And thank you for this collaboration, fruitful collaboration. So we will move to questions from audience. I'm asking behind the scene, Shams. So yeah, we have Jasbu from Florida. Good afternoon. Hi from Abdulrahim Hashawi. Isra Sayed, good afternoon. Pinak from Cambridge. Jagu. Katayun from Toronto. Zach Mays from San Antonio.
Okay, down the road.
Raj, we have our students also here and our graduates from InnoVigilance. Salihat Qurashi, hello all, excited to learn. Thank you. Iman Nasser from Massachusetts, USA. From Mexico. Wow. So thank you for being with us. And yeah, we have the first question from Raj.
Okay.
Are there commercial tests for detecting OPRM1 or OPRD2 sensitivity?
It's a great question because it's a big kind of general issue is pain management. At least here in the States, I can speak to, there's an opioid epidemic with abuse of opioids, but then there's also a concern of, we do have to kind of, take a patient's word on if they aren't having pain. And so they may be having a high dose, but they're not getting pain control. So then it's always a question of a physician, are they just trying to get more pain medications, or are they truly not having pain control? And OPR 1 and 2 are genes and that can, depending on the variant, can really impact the opioid response. And depending, there's a lot of different testing panels here in the States. It is possible to test for OPR. Another big one is related to cytochrome 2C19 and its impact and codeine response. So codeine, as many of you may know, is a prodrug and it cannot be activated without that enzyme. So if the patient's a poor metabolizer, they're never going to get pain relief from using codeine. So that's another thing that I think people don't realize through healthcare. But yeah, great question, Raj. And to answer your question, you can check out some of the different panels that are available, and OPR is one that you can test for. So,
thank you, big thanks, Sarah. So just to go back also to the expanding market of pharmacovigilance in North America. There's many of market research studies regarding the North American market of pharmacovigilance, and we still see more openings in pharmaceutical industry and in other clinical settings with the clinical development and the drug development, the vaccine development for the pandemic, we saw many openings in drug safety and pharmacovigilance associates, directors. Actually, I see about 12 to 20 openings a day in Canada, and about 30 openings a day in the US. I just received those notifications on LinkedIn. The question is, how do you see the future of pharmacovigilance and pharmacovigilance market in the USA, in North America, but in the USA as you're based in the US?
Yeah, I think the landscape really is shifting a lot. And I think with more reporting, there's more opportunities, there's more roles being created, as you mentioned. And I think it just goes back to kind of what are those opportunities to get immersed into the field and really prepare yourself. So, yeah, I think it will be interesting to see, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, where are we going to kind of shift our focus, and how are we going to address the new health economy created by COVID and a shift towards telehealth, and how is this going to play into our safety screening, and will we start to see adaptation to current mechanisms?
Thank you. Another question from Maxine. Hi, Maxine. So a very interesting project. Does ASP have any plans for global collaboration?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I know we're called the American Society of Pharmacovigilance. Our mission is kind of to address some of the issues we see with ADEs here stateside and across globally. People have other top causes of death where side effects from drugs may be lower and infectious disease may be higher. But I will say, through even the existing programs that we have right now as a newer organization, we're already collaborating globally, especially with the patient access piece. So getting pharmacogenomics into developing countries is a big opportunity. So we collaborate with an organization called the Golden Helix Foundation, which is based in the UK, and they do a lot of economics research. And they've done the first study for PGX in a developing country, and they're doing great work. And so we collaborate with them a lot. And, our Access and Reimbursement Coalition has international members as well. And then with the Stripe collaborative community, yes, some of our priorities around the US regulatory landscape, if you will, and some of the changes to regulation around pharmacogenetics testing and other types of testing. So, but in addition to that, we are also trying to align standards internationally as well. So you have great work done in Europe with the PGX passport. People can actually take their genetic results to different places. And how can we incorporate those types of improvements or, and I think that that's a big opportunity as well. So we have on, even within Stripe, we have an international affairs committee where we're trying to get leaders in pharmacogenomics with different countries to kind of share what challenges they face and foster collaboration. How can we work together to align on different standards where it's possible to align? There's obviously differences in healthcare systems and structures around the world. So to consider that as well.
Perfect, thank you. Other question? Yeah, Sonam, hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon from, I think, the other side of the globe. You are fantastic, Omar. Thank you. Thank you. So we are trying to spread the knowledge, to share the information, and to get you to have and to be involved in PV, in pharmacovigilance, in drug safety. Thank you for hosting the webinar from BNP. Thank you so much for this wonderful program. It was great learning. Thank you. Walid Ghana from Algeria, from my fellow citizen. Thank you. Hi, Walid. Yeah, so we were talking now about our drug safety and pharmacovigilance certificate to share the information what we are providing in this online pre-recorded lectures launched on last November 1st, November 1st, 2020. We provide learnings about the basics in pharmacovigilance and introduction. We have five modules. Pharmacovigilance introduction and basics, all an overview about all the definitions in pharmacovigilance, drug safety, what are adverse events, adverse drug reactions, side effects, the regulatory, an overview of the regulatory, of the international regulatory in pharmacovigilance, the most important regulation, the European regulation, the FDA regulation, and the US regulation, the Canadian regulation, the Japanese, the ICH, International Council of Harmonization. The other module is about the drug safety regulation and good pharmacovigilance practices. What should a pretendant or an applicant of for PV, for pharmacovigilance positions in the pharmaceutical industry should know, should learn about to be compliant in their work. The other module is about the pharmacovigilance and drug safety operations. So the day-to-day activities, I mean the data, safety data collection, the organization of a department of pharmacovigilance in pharmaceutical companies, the case processing and how to manage the safety information received, reported to the pharmaceutical companies, how to make the triage, how to enter this safety information into safety databases. I mean, it's a training about the safety databases and the most used safety databases in pharmaceutical companies. The causality assessment between and the link about between the adverse drug the adverse events and our adverse drug reactions and the drugs and medical devices, the reporting, the submission of adverse drug reactions or ICSRs, individual case safety reports, and other lectures. And the last module about the safety medical writing, the authoring and preparing the aggregate reports, the signal detection and signal management, which is very important, then the risk management system and how to write the risk management plans, how to implement the risk minimization measures, and in different regulations. I mean, in Europe, the most important in Europe, in Canada, in the US, but also in the other region, in Latin America, in MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, and in Asia region also. So we have those different modules that you can be enrolled and take this lectures, about 25 lectures, with handouts, with guidance to be printed or saved, and to be to read this material, course material. And if you decide to get the fourth modules, you will have a certificate with plus a CV update or resume update and job readiness interview mock and personal coaching for to get this certificate, and this certificate is, as we announced today, is recognized by the ASP. And the good news that you will have plus this certification 1 year contributing and membership at the ASP. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. So if you need more information, please go and visit www.innovigilance.com. The certificate is and this course is built by InnoVigilance and International Academy and hosted by RX Course. So I want to thank RX Course team, Dr. Shams and Dr. Bayan behind the scene for this great work and the collaboration. I want to thank also Dr. Sarah for her support. Thank you very much. Yeah. Have we other questions from the audience? Yeah, we have a question from Algeria. Yeah, so congratulations to Algeria being a full member of the UMC Uppsala Monitoring Center just last week, with with Kuwait, with Lebanon, and other countries. This is a first step. I make a lot of I'm trying to make bridges with my fellow citizens and colleagues there in Algeria to spread also the knowledge of pharmacovigilance and to make basics and basis there in pharmacovigilance to address the burden is the same as in our pandemic. Now we understood that the health is global. Yeah, we are in collaboration with health authorities there, and things will gonna better more and more. Thank you.
So happy to handle this question. Is epigenetics a component of pharmacogenetic testing? Again, another great question. Epigenetics were really testing and flagging if certain variants in the genetic code are present. Epigenetics, we're talking about factors that affect, the regulation of the gene. So it is separate from pharmacogenetic testing, but also important to consider, because what if you're taking fluconazole? That can upregulate or downregulate certain enzyme levels. So epigenetics does matter. Pharmacogenomic testing doesn't capture that in the testing.
Thank you, Raj. Tao said that it was a great learning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ron, thanks. Slides will, I've sent them over to Dr. Eimer. He's welcome to share them via whichever way is the best way to share slides, but you can also feel free to email me as well, and I'm happy to send you a copy. So both, hopefully.
Thank you. So yeah, just to for the audience that we will share this webinar. You can see it again on our YouTube channel, InnoVigilance, and our social media on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So you will be welcome to see it again, to react, to send comment, and to share it with your network. Tiras Nawat, PV course are available in Canada. The PV course is InnoVigilance Pharmacovigilance Drug Safety Certificate, is an online job ready certificate course already pre-recorded on online. So it's an e-learning. You have to register and to start learning at your own pace. About, as I mentioned before, 25 lectures, about 40 hours learning. And yeah, you can, as I said, learn at your own pace. your own rhythm, and you can so you can just go on rxcourse.com or innovigilance.com and have more information and to register. And we can support also. You can send us an email or comments or messages on LinkedIn or Facebook. Hi, Dr. Omar, and thanks for your guest. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Please inform regarding future of pharmacovigilance in Pakistan. We as we are both based in Canada and the US, we don't have many information about the pharmacovigilance in Pakistan. All that we from my side, I know that the ISOP, the International Society of Pharmacovigilance, are doing a great job to spread the knowledge, to address and to inform about adverse drug reactions, about pharmacovigilance and drug safety around the world with the APSANA Monitoring Center and the World Health Organization.
A good question again. So the difference between pharmacogenomics and pharmacogenetics, and I kind of talk a little bit about some of the terminology in the beginning and how important it is to make sure we're using the terminology correctly. Another kind of set of words that's used interchangeably, pharmacogenomics and pharmacogenetics. Very similar in this case, but I think the main difference is pharmacogenomics is we're talking about at a population level, the genome of the whole population. In the study of the human genome, for example. Within pharmacogenetics, we're talking about your specific genetics. So if we have pharmacogenetics testing, we're identifying the genetics of a specific individual, and I think that's the key difference.
Hani, interesting, thank you. You're welcome. So we have a question. What about the job opportunities in other countries? Right now, the competency to be in the pharmacovigilance market is with the world and not only in your country of residence. Go ahead if you have.
It's a good question. So what is kind of right now competency to be in the pharmacovigilance market is, I guess my question for you, Dr. Eimer, so we have the pharmaceutical companies have offices around the world. So what are kind of the key differences in how they operate at a national level versus, what they may, are there vast differences in the processes, and how does that work?
Yeah, of course. I'm a good example of this because I worked on pharmacology and pharmacovigilance in North Africa, in Europe, and in North America. So the regulation, the main regulation is the same. There's slightly difference between the US and the European regulation, but the knowledge is the same. The mission is the same, and you can, as now we for the ICH, the International International Council of Harmonization, is about the pharmaceutical companies, the global companies, that they met the international regulatory bodies to harmonize the regulation, because big companies like Pfizer, like Sanofi, like Novartis, and the other companies, J&J, they are big companies, global companies, and they had an issue to follow the regulation in the US, but other regulation in the global regulation in Europe, other global regulation and regulation in Japan, in Canada. So they asked the health authorities and the regulatory bodies to harmonize the regulation for them to follow and to be compliant more and more about this regulation. So for pharmacovigilance professional in the pharmaceutical companies, the knowledge of the ICH, the International Council of Harmonization, regulation is very important. The U.S. Regulation is very important because this the leading with the European one, the leading regulation. I give always an example. If you're based in the USA and you're working for an European company, you have to report the adverse drug reactions, the ICSRs, individual case safety reports, to the US because you're based in the US, to report to submit those ICSRs to the FDA as per the FDA regulation. But also you have to report those ICSRs to Europe because you are a European company, to the EMA or the European Medicine Agency as per their regulation. So if you are involved in a European company in the US, you have to acquire the knowledge of the European and the US regulation, and vice versa. If you are involved and you're working and you look to be involved in US company based in Europe, you have to know the US regulation. If even you are working and you're based in Germany or in France, or and to report to the FDA and to report to the EMA, and Japanese also as well. So yeah, the knowledge of the regulation, the knowledge of the international regulation, and you can work in MENA region, you can work in Latin America, you can work in US and North America. I already have experience of 4 years in pharmacovigilance from India and drug safety physician, but want to explore about how to enter the PV domain in North America. Do I still need to take a course? Yes, of course. I'm also the good example because I worked as a pharmacovigilance specialist in France, in Paris before, and when I came here landed here in Canada, I wanted to know more about the regulation and the Canadian regulation, because it's a requirement in the first requirement you see on job description for the in Canada for that kind of positions. Also in the US, the most and the first requirements is the knowledge of the FDA regulation. So I tried to update my knowledge and to know more about the Canadian regulation. The same also for someone who landed or who landed in the US, to update the regulation. It's very important. So I didn't found that, and I had the idea to build this program, this course, to help fresh graduates, newcomers also, to update their knowledge on drug safety regulation in North America. So yeah, I think that you still need this course. Raj, congratulations on the important recognition and endorsement of InnoVigilance RX course by the esteemed American Society of Pharmacovigilance. Thank you, Raj.
Sure, I'm happy to answer this question from Ben. So we learned some lessons from the safety communications that went out to InnoVigilance Laboratory, I guess a couple of years ago at this point. So there's variation in the way that clinical laboratories were marketing what the testing could do. And the FDA felt in the safety communications, they had sent out some to a few different laboratories, and felt that it was posing a risk to the public health, because they were saying that, maybe, for example, if you get a certain test, it's going to be able to do a certain thing that wasn't proven by science at this point. So that really highlights the impotence for forming the STRIPE collaborative community. and what is a standardized approach to evaluating the evidence, and how we use the same information, the same evidence, to come up with that clinical decision support, and how we'll use that genetic information to translate it into a clinical decision. So that's where the variation was. That was my, that's my understanding of the basis for the safety communications that went out to Innova and a few others. And it's, I think created a lot of concern for the pharmacogenomics community, because if laboratories can't report clinical decision support alongside the genetic testing, then it's preventing patient access to the testing, because physicians may or may not know if a patient's a star 7, star 3 allele, what does that really mean for how it's going to affect the medication that they're thinking of prescribing. So that's what we're working on right now with the Stripe Collaborative community. And thanks for bringing that up, Ben, because it really was the impetus for forming the community.
Thank you, Ben. Fazilat Zehra, what are the charges of the course for Pakistani pharmacists? So you have all the information and about the course in our websites, InnoVigilance.com and RxCourse.com. It's important that for you to know that the course is international. It's not that just for North American citizens or for North American professionals, healthcare professionals, but because we are providing the U.S. FDA regulation, the Health Canada regulation, about the European regulation, the Latin America regulation, Japanese regulation, Chinese regulation, all the major regulations in the globe. So yeah, and the knowledge is the same. The basics are the same as I mentioned. In Pakistan, in other countries, you can be involved, and you can apply for companies, U.S. companies, for global companies, European companies, U.S. companies, Japanese companies, the most big pharma, and you need this knowledge, even you are in Pakistan or other countries from the Levant. So you have to know this regulation, and it will help you to get these positions. Joshua, thank you. I suggest to have a conference for reviewing Latin PV landscape, or maybe just Mexico. You can count on from me for. Thank you, Joshua. So
I think Joshua is the president of the Mexican Society of Pharmacovigilance, so I think we could definitely collaborate on that. I look forward to it.
Thank you. I think it would be a great idea if companies can create online database, okay, so that all people who use particular company products can report through the app. This would have a spontaneous data.
Great idea. And that's where we're talking about the entrepreneurship opportunities. Yeah, let's talk about how we could get something like that done. What do you think would be the, do you think there'd be any challenges with that, Dr. Eimer, to do something like an app?
Yeah, of course. There's that we saw just for the vaccines, the CDC, that the CDC in the US, they launched also a V app or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, about reporting vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines adverse drug reactions. I saw also some application from the east of Africa, some applications also to report to facilitate the reporting of adverse drug reactions. So yeah, of course, AI, there's another topic, artificial intelligence, IT, also information technology is here and is bringing much help to the pharmacovigilance.
which would help with the quality data, and so you can also contact patients to get genetic. Yeah, so kind of like what Europe's doing with the PGX passport. How can we make that genetic information more interoperable, if you will?
Safa, so thank you, Safa, for your question. Could we choose the modules of your program that we want to attend? Personally, I'm already working in the PV field, and there is a specific modules that I want to study. Thank you. Yes, so you can register, you can be enrolled on different modules separately, but to have the certificate, you have to complete the whole modules, the whole course, to get the certificate, to get the CV update, and other to join also the ASP. So you have to complete the whole course. But if you have the choice to choose just the modules that you are interested in. So yeah, please go ahead, and you are welcome to join our course. As I also I said that it's not the course is the lectures are pre-recorded. You can do it now and join and enjoy your learning. So Raj, Dr. Omar, congratulations on being one of the keynote speakers at the upcoming Drug Safety Congress America later in this year in Boston. Yeah, thank you very much. You know, the Drug Safety World Drug Safety Congress is now for me as a big family, as I'm involved in this World Drug Safety Congress since 5 years in the US, but also in Europe, and in next October, I hope that it will be in person Congress and events, and there will be the World Drug Safety Congress America held in Boston, and the other in Amsterdam at the beginning of October also. Leon Vasquez, I'm interested in Joe's proposal. Yeah. So Mexico and Latin America is, yeah.
Let's do it. Maybe we'll meet at the World Safety Conference in Boston to discuss.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for accepting for this insightful webinar, for joining us. It's really it was an honor to have you today.
Yeah, great to be here, and thanks, to all of the attendees for such wonderful questions.
Yeah, thank you for our followers, for our attendees. Yeah, please share, please react to our webinars, join and subscribe on our InnoVigilance YouTube channel, LinkedIn page, Facebook page, and don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need any information, more information about the course, about the lectures. We will happy to reply, to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you again and again, Dr. Sarah. So yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Hopefully, to see you next time in next month webinar. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Bye.